Howdy, everybody. Welcome to a brand new podcast
without a name.
without a name, but it will have a name by the time this gets posted, there will be a name and there'll be a channel. So my name's Jason, and this is
Cody.
Cody, and we're just two friends that thought it was a good idea to start a new channel on YouTube.
Yet another
Like everybody needs another channel
to
right?
add to your sub list.
Right. For the last bit, Cody and I have been on another show, the Smith and Roland show. Been on and off that for some time. We thought it'd be fun just to start something, the two of us.
Yeah, part of the Kingdom Prophetic Society, if you're interested in that show.
Yep, kingdompropheticiety.org. We'll get you over to the website where you should definitely join up. And you will find all of our videos there when they get posted, but they'll also be here on this YouTube channel. But Cody, you want to jump in and just talk about your thoughts behind the whole thing?
Yeah, I think we really wanted to kick this off of just a open discussion of our loose, I guess, thoughts on the direction of basically our content as a whole. We've been kicking around the idea for what, 6-8 months, a year, something like that, of having a podcast. So I think we, for whatever reason, I think both felt the Spirit leading us in that direction, and finally listened to that call, I guess, and moving in that direction. I think my thoughts initially on focus areas of content, I guess, would be and Jason and I have discussed this a little loosely, and I mean maybe a 5-minute discussion, but obviously faith is a big portion of both of our lives. We obviously want to focus there. I want to pull in, both of us are fathers to young children. I think maybe some of those circumstances to discuss, and then also just society as a whole has a pretty big lacking of just men in general. So I would like to be a resource, I know Jason would as well, to younger men, and maybe be a resource for them of something I wish I had at 18, 20 years old, right? So what about you? What is that? Some of your thoughts? You want to?
Yeah, I would say I'm right there with you. Okay. I find myself talking to quite a few different types of people, and it's you can't always. That's not always the place. You're like, how it goes. You'll be talking to somebody, and it's like it sparks this whole like conversation in your head. Like, man, I wish I could sit down and have a deep dive conversation into this topic, or Christianity as a whole, the church. It's interesting to me, like going into 2025, how it feels like the world has a little different feel right now, but I wouldn't say that it's an easy feel. People are really struggling. We've talked a little bit about identity crises, and it's hard for me to look at a young guy and see them struggling so hard to find out who they are, when that simple is that answer is so simple. It's found in Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
It's found in who God's called us to be. Everybody's different, and I'd love to maybe we could dive a little bit into some theological stuff as well. Later on down the road, I think that will be finding a clear path for people. I think people finding a clear path is definitely something that I think people, young men are really struggling with. young men are under attack in every aspect of this world right now. And I think the enemy knows that if he can take down the men, he's got the world.
Sure.
And so my goal would be to inspire other young men, younger, I'm not so young anymore, but inspire men to really take up their cross and whatever that is and however that looks like, and truly follow Jesus.
Agreed.
That's not a simple thing. It is a simple thing, but it's not an easy thing. It is a very simple, but
simple
everybody's
concept, but a challenging.
It's so challenging.
A challenging thing. Yeah.
And so my hope is that those guys will be able to resonate with a little bit of what we talk about. I think, as we go forward, having those discussions, we see it, we both seen it, how different sects of Christianity are really attracting young men for good reason. There is a good reason that they're there, or they're being attracted to that. But a lot of times on the other side of that, what they're finding is not necessarily probably what they were looking for. And so I think it would be fun to get into some of those discussions. We both know quite a few people. I'd love to have some of those people on this podcast, and we can they don't have to agree with us. Like, I'm open to learning as well.
Sure.
So, I think it'd be cool to have some of these other guys that we know on here, just to have a sounding board, really hash things out, and really let's answer some of those tougher questions about faith. And also, I resonate with you on the fatherhood side of things. I think that's a thing that, if you just continually repeat the cycle that your parents did and their parents did, it's one of those things where generational curses can really come alive. And if your eyes are open to it, you see it, you're way less likely to repeat it. And so I get really excited about that stuff, seeing people change their family tree, cancel out some of those, change, and just get rid of some of the generational curses. And I use that term loosely, but that can be a wide gamut of stuff. I know you have a lot of, you're coming from your family and your childhood. There's a lot there that you've been able to overcome, and me as well. So I think that could be an encouragement to people as well.
I think that's a good, maybe even segue, just to help people understand a little bit of background of who we are and where we come from, and maybe the circumstances. It's not, green pastures and
no
red roses everywhere. But for me anyway, came from a broken family. Father that left. I didn't even meet him. I think I was in my mid-20s whenever I actually met him. Had a sister that I'd never, at least remembered meeting. Met her in my mid-20s as well. Basically just to scratch that itch of, who are they? Didn't really want anything out of a dad at that time, but there would always be that question, lingering if you didn't at least meet the guy. So, mom's a drug addict. Both are now passed away. Mom passed away at, I think she was 49. She died on a Mother's Day. My biological dad died, I think, at 50, but both pretty young. So I grew up, completely astray. Nobody really cared where I was or what I did. Luckily, I think I had, the Holy Spirit giving me conviction about not, going too far down a bad road, being a druggie or getting into drugs or drinking myself. But I always felt, the Spirit was telling me that was a road I didn't want to travel, but plus had an example of a mother that, I didn't want to do that either. But really kind of had the space to forge my own path at the time. Completely ignorant of anything religion, completely ignorant of, easy things that men should be brought up into throughout, their younger years and teens even. Sort of made my pathway. Luckily found a good woman in high school. We've dated since high school. We're now married. We've been together for over 20 years. We got 2 kids. But it wasn't until I was 26. No, 27. I was 27. We started going to church and just felt the Spirit leading me, pulling me to that. And for whatever reason, I just couldn't explain it. I don't know if Jason, maybe I don't even know if we've ever talked about this, but or if you had the same sort of experience, but I felt this overwhelming drawing to one of the deacons in the church. I was like, I don't know why, but I got to talk to this guy. I had no clue, but I just knew I had to do it. And we'd been going to church there a couple months, and so I went, set up a time, go talk to the guy. I even, in my physical mind, I said, I'm not going there to say I'm accepting Jesus today, but I just want to answer some questions answered. And that's not where the Spirit led me that day, though. Yeah, I accepted Christ that day, and it's like you said, it's not an easy thing. It's been a battle ever since of lots of enlightenment. Things I now know that we don't need to be in this with the secular space, and we've chosen to put our kids into pull our kids, or we never put them in a public school. We stay in church. And I'm not saying all that's just to be works based. It's just it's a complete shift in who you are, or it was for me after salvation. So that's a long and short of my background. What about you?
Well, there's probably some similarities there for sure, but I grew up in what most people would have called the perfect family on the outside. Um, my parents both of them came from pretty rough. Um, my dad was a drug addict and all that. He was a big party. I mean, it was the '80s, so
Yeah.
he found Christ, and my mom, they did, I think, really did. They raised us the best they could. I mean, they really did. I was a homeschool kid, so I'm kind of like one generation removed from where you were. Um, and I was in church a lot growing up. Um, very sheltered kid. I don't think that's bad. Looking back, there's things that could go back and I'm sure there's things if they could go back and change, they probably would. But you know, I still struggled. So that whole, you know, that generation coming out of like the life and stuff they had, their solution was to try to shield and keep you from doing the same things they did, which doesn't really work 100% of the time. I'm living proof of that. But there's, I struggled a lot with depression through my teen years, especially. Kind of unexplainable. I had you know, it was rough. I'm not going to go too far into detail there. But I did, I had people in my life that really, really helped pull me along through that journey. Um, you know, Alan from, we both know him. He was very instrumental, um, probably without him even realizing it at the time, very instrumental in me even being here. And there's other people there too that just God used. And, looking back at those years of my life, just you could look at it at the time and say it was coincidence. The things that would happen, the phone calls I would get, but it wasn't at all. Um, and so, yeah, so I can kind of sympathize with the very, like I said, my parents did the best they could, the best they knew how, and not everything was right. You know, Later on in life, when I found my wife, things really got really bad with my parents. Just the whole situation was pretty rough. But I find a lot of guys that are estranged from their parents, um, and never got to experience redemption and
Mhm.
forgiveness and all of that stuff. Um, and so I'm always after that. I like to see I got to walk through that. And I love to see other people make the same trip. You know,
Yeah.
I believe restoration is one of God's main missions with people. Um, and so I love to see restoration happen. And so, yeah, that tells you a little bit about me. Um,
Two very different backgrounds, but a lot of similarities as
yeah,
well.
there's some similarities. Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a that's there's a lot there. When I talk about generational curses and stuff, um, I'm very serious about that
Mhm.
because growing up the way I did, from the outside we appeared, you know, at least I think we did. Maybe we didn't do such a good job as I think, but but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
You have there was a little more. It was a little different back then. You know, Looking back, my family was one of the first families in one of the early families in this county to even homeschool,
Mhm.
and so there might have been a little something to prove there to some degree, maybe I don't know, but my parents are both, I'm super happy with the way that the way that things are today. My parents are divorced now. It's a split up family, so I've got to I've got to walk through that later in life,
Mhm.
within the last couple years. And so that's that's not an easy thing, I think, for a lot of kids to do. It does still affect kids even if it is later in life. It's not something you want to see happen. So,
Yeah, and I think you spoke earlier about this feeling of just the it's 2025's rolling through. Don't you just get that sense of more hope just in
oh, so
society
much,
as a
man.
whole?
I sure do. Um, it does feel like a somewhat of a burden has been lifted.
Yeah.
Somewhat, you feel lighter, like a little bit lighter.
Mhm.
I own a couple businesses, and so like we really got to feel the economic struggle
Mhm.
this past year, especially. Um, and so, but I don't know, man. It's something. It's almost like it happened at New Year's Day. It's like something just you start feeling lighter. Not saying the economy's better, but there's something about it there's a sense of hope.
I
And
almost backdate that. Obviously we had a big election, uh, in 2024, but I would say even a few months before that,
mhm,
I felt like it was trending in the right direction. You start reading all these things, something like I've never seen in my time in the church is a
mhm,
massive uptick in Bible sales.
Yeah.
and that we're in that. People are searching for information, searching for answers, and I think they're finally getting the message that there's a single resource that we can use for that. Um, a- a- and to me, that's like maybe like an epiphany that society is having, is like, we need to turn back towards God. I mean, big in the news now is these LA fires. Um, I'm seeing completely secular, Malibu actresses, actors saying, talking about prayer. And
Mhm.
um, you go back 8 months, and
Yeah.
that wasn't happening.
We just like breaking news this week has been Meta's shift on the way that they're going to do content filtering and
Hmm.
all of this. It is like a light switch is flipped, and I don't know if people really. I've made it through maybe about a third of Zuck's interview
Hmm.
with Rogan, and hearing him talk and hearing like you know I take people for what they say typically. I mean,
Sure.
that's just the way I look at it, but he he has been on a journey since 2020. Zuckerberg has
Rogan.
been
uh,
Zuckerberg has been on a journey since 2020, and it's interesting to look and see how certain people and things that he's gotten involved with have completely shifted his mentality on things, and truly getting to understand, getting the inside look at why he was making the decisions he was making then. He makes it very clear he runs that company.
sure.
Um, and so it's very interesting. And, just hearing him talk, I mean, it's just refreshing to see some of these guys really start like waking up.
Well, and
It's really like they're just waking up.
one thing I would not discount in his epiphany is physical stature. Like, it seems like he has had a testosterone boost
Well, he talks
after
about that.
getting into jujitsu.
Yeah, he talks about getting into jiu-jitsu, and Rogan laughs and says, jiu-jitsu's the quickest way to create a libertarian or something like that. Which, I mean, it's just interesting. Like, he brought Dana White onto the board of
Uh-huh.
Meta. I mean, good lord.
That's
Talk
funny.
about
I didn't
it's
even,
hilarious.
I haven't even watched that interview, and
Yeah.
I'm completely, I attribute a lot of that to just physical stature. And
Yeah.
once you get off the couch, and this is especially for
Yep.
young men too, like take care of yourself. And
Yep.
once you actually start um, being physically in shape and how we're supposed to be, our bodies are meant to work. Um, that's part of the original curse for men, is to work, right?
Mhm.
And so God would have made us for that purpose.
Yep.
Um, so that testosterone boost is a big kick, I'm
Yep.
sure. I wouldn't discount
Yep.
that at all. But
Ye
you're talking about Zuckerberg being on his own road to Damascus.
Mhm.
I would add uh, Rogan in there as well.
For sure.
And even
I
this
mean
week, I've not made it all the way through, but Wesley Huff was
mhm.
a joined in on his podcast, and that's probably one of the clearest gospel messages
Really.
that I've heard. I've not finished the podcast yet, but
How did Rogan respond to it?
I haven't made it to that point. I've only
Mhm.
seen the snippet portions, but
Mhm.
I mean, think back again 2-3 years ago. Do you think that would happen on the Joe Rogan podcast?
No. No, I mean, you're looking at what I'm hoping is the future of America right now. Like, I
And
think we're
it
looking
is,
at
because
yeah.
that video alone, it was posted, I think 2 or 3 days ago.
Mhm.
It's which all of his are in the 700,000-800,000
Yeah.
views. That one's over 3 million
Mhm.
views already. So,
It's crazy. It's
mhm.
crazy. And so it just goes to show that people are, how many people do you think that affects? You just take the percentage, a very small percentage of 3 million people that message got to, that would affect their lives, that would affect them, that would wake them up.
Mhm.
He wasn't just giving that message to Rogan, he was giving it to 3 million people.
Yeah. If there was one, then it was worth it.
It was worth it. And so, we've talked a lot about, once you stray from the gospel too far, as far as, once you get, that's where all these like theological things come into play.
Right.
It's like you get somebody there and then they want more, they want more. Well, they start turning to these big talking heads here or here, and then,
Sects as a whole.
yeah, and so, and then, but the problem with it is you're always looking for somebody to agree with you with things. Well, what makes you feel good? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and that's not always the case.
Well,
You know?
I wouldn't say it's always just the feel good. You've got
Yeah.
kind of both ends of the spectrum. You've got the complete feel goods, and you got the 100% oppressors as well. So
Yep.
I think it's just I don't know. Just your thoughts on religion as a whole. There's so much religion in that.
There is.
Yeah.
There is. I mean, I can get something from just about anybody. I mean,
Mhm.
I can listen to some Orthodox guys and get some crazy good, good wisdom from those guys. I can listen to somebody like Doug Wilson. I may not agree with him
Sure.
on a majority of his theology, but I respect the man for what he's done and what he's doing, and he has a good message a lot of times. Like, he
Sure.
has the sound bites and the things that get out, that a lot of times that's all people get to see is the sound bites. And the struggle with it though is those differences. I was talking to Alan and Jeff about, the last couple of weeks, my life has been filled with people in replacement theology and like everything from that to like off the wall Hebrew roots people
Right.
that, that to me is the danger, not being grounded, not having a good mix of word and spirit in your
Mhm.
life. You have to have both. You can't just go, and that's the extremes, like you deal with
Sure.
the extremes here, and having the balance, the spirit bringing the word to life today, making it alive today, just like it was 2,000, 3,000 years ago. That word can come, it is a living thing, and it will be, the Holy Spirit will use it, bring it to life, and apply it to your life today in ways, where if you're just reading the word without the Holy Spirit, you're not gonna get too much out of it.
Yeah.
You're gonna come up with a whole lot of rules and a whole lot of things that's just about impossible, and then you just get to read about the failures of everybody that tried it. And so
one of the other churches Paul wrote to.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of, as a early Christian, I'm at fault too. I discounted a lot of that.
Yeah.
It wasn't really until the last, I would say maybe 2 years, 2.5 maybe, that the enlightenment has came upon, has been given to me and my
Mhm.
family, of just like, there's too much religion in this. We've ended up moving churches in that time. I would say
let's define that real quick, what you mean by that. When you say religion, you mean man?
yes, man-made
Yeah,
religion.
okay.
So much,
'Cause a lot of people hear religion and they're thinking, "Oh, what? Is he some new agey?" No, religion is man's attempt to reach God. So you're leaning on a man-made effort.
works-based. Yes.
Works-based, yes.
Yeah.
Continue,
Well,
I'm sorry.
and then, yeah, you're right too, and I should clarify that. And there's a lot of holier than thou in, all of those individual sects, where their their primary focus of every message is to discount someone else's message.
Mhm.
It's not to focus on themselves. It's a very outwardly looking and not inwardly, which is what the law is meant to do, is
Mhm.
to make us look inwardly, see that we're all sinners that uh, have no way to help ourselves by no works based, and that's why Christ came to relieve us of that. So um,
But it's getting to the place where people will argue with that simple fact. It's just incredible to me, and the pride that it takes to be able to think. So I lean not on your own understanding. You can't. You have. That's why I say the Word and the Spirit together. You
Yeah.
have to have that interpreter. You have to have that. You have to have that Spirit to apply with the Word.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're just leaning on what you understand it to be.
Sure.
And that is dangerous, because then you start having all this pride. Oh, I've got it all.
Mhm.
And if you look at any, there's tons of examples of that. We don't have to expand on that, but where somebody gets this, it's all pride.
Yeah. They think
And
they're the chosen to be enlightened.
yeah, oh, I've got it. I've got this new thing. No. None
Well, I
of it's
mean,
got anything new.
I've told you 1,000 times that some of the most combative places on the internet are in these theology groups.
Yeah.
I've never, most of these posts and discussion are all about discounting someone else's theology.
Yeah.
It's not about building each other up at all. It's not about iron sharpening iron at all.
Yeah.
It's about arguing theology.
Yeah.
So
It's about everybody puking all over everybody else.
yeah, look how much I know about
Yeah.
the Bible. I'm
Look
first
how
to
much-
tell you, I'm ignorant. I'm an idiot. Just maybe I shouldn't be doing a podcast, but but I mean, again, back to that sort of eye-opening. Like you said, you can listen to anybody and glean something, a nugget from anybody. Maybe that's part of my walk and journey these last couple of years, is just having my mind opened more, and just
Yeah.
what can I get from somebody? Because everybody's an example.
They are. And all of these different sects of Christianity all started with some movement of God. It all started there. And so you can find about anywhere, you can find this, like, you can find truth, and you can find, the gospel, and you can find all that. It goes back to religion, what we were just talking about a minute ago, when man starts thinking they can improve on what God's done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the dangerous part, I think. When you think you can somehow improve Christ's sacrifice, I mean, you're getting in dangerous waters there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you've the Hebrew roots movement's been twisting the knife in you there for the last little bit. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's another. I mean, I've said works based a couple times already. That's just another works based avenue, which I don't want to discount the intention of any of those groups. Like you said, all of those things were probably birthed out of a good intention.
Sure.
But being sinful in nature, once we get involved, that's where it all goes awry.
We just can mess it up real quick.
Right.
Yep. So yeah, we'll get into some of that stuff, I think.
Yep.
That'll be good. And as we go, we'll run into people.
Mm-hmm.
We can have them come on, talk about it. If you guys have an opinion on what we're saying, or you want to kind of jump in there and join the discussion and bring your point, your view to the table, put it in the comments.
Yep.
So
I'd say maybe one thing we didn't discuss too is just some generational stuff.
Yeah.
I think we probably fall in that like weird range where we're not quite, of older aging out group,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not quite the young group. And it obviously depends on what church you're going to, but you know, I think we could agree on that most of the churches around these days are more of the aging populace. So
It's sad. It really is sad
mhm,
to see. You know, I feel like if you look back at in 2020, COVID hit, and everybody, it really did clean out a lot of the people that were just occupying a pew on Sunday that weren't really serious about it. But at the same time, it made people have an excuse not to go to church.
mhm,
It gave people an excuse, and um, you know, I feel bad. I meet a lot of guys that they just refuse to go to church. They're like,
yeah,
"Oh, it's so much. They just want your money." And no, I mean, Christ was very, very, very intent on what he said there about about the church
mhm, and the gathering of.
and the gathering of the saints.
Mhm.
And so, a lot of times, I meet a lot of people. It feels like they don't fit in anywhere. You know, they feel like they don't fit in anywhere.
Perfect.
Exactly. Go look in the mirror and realize the problem. Like it it's not everybody else. You might be the problem.
Yeah, right.
And so that's and too, like when the Holy Spirit brings something to you, majority of the time that's for you. It's
Mhm,
not for everybody else. It can apply other places, but usually that's a word for you.
sure.
And so it it seems like it can get a little hard there, like, when you have to self-examine and like, "Oh, man, this is I thought I was doing pretty good here."
Yeah,
And, like, there's
criticism's tough. I mean, especially from the Holy
especially from the
Spirit, right?
Spirit, yeah.
And it's bad enough
Yeah,
your wife telling you need, or your brother in Christ coming to
yeah,
you and saying, "Hey, you need to work on this." But it's the Spirit penetrating your soul. Uh,
nope,
that's a little bit tougher.
it is a little
Um,
tougher.
I would say, you talked about the COVID and giving people a
Mhm,
reason not to. I would say still God used that though, um, because none of the churches. Well, I would say a solid 80% of churches weren't streaming,
yeah,
that now are. That's a great resource,
it is a great resource.
and
It is.
you don't have to wait for Sunday anymore.
Mhm,
I used online streaming from, it has to be at least, and we got a lot of churches in our area. I'd say a solid 50% of the churches around here. I've streamed some material on,
yeah,
and we took finding a church very seriously. Um,
I kinda feel bad where you ended up, to be honest with you. Having put up with Jeff, old Jeffy, Pastor No Hair.
Pastor No Hairs. Yep, yep. He's delivering some of the messages there. So,
Yeah,
uh, no, it's a we'd streamed all these services and
mhm.
teachings from all these places. It's a literal bottomless resource.
It is, and it's really the new front door to the church.
Mhm.
It's a pretty big deal. We've been live streaming, I mean, for years at New Life, and being able to, going into when COVID started, being able to up the ante there,
Mhm.
and because like I said, we had a lot of older people that, truthfully, they shouldn't get COVID. They shouldn't be exposed
Sure.
to all that mess. They should
Right.
they should stay at home. I mean, they don't need that, and so it really gave them an avenue there, to be able to feel like, they were being a part, and,
Well, how long were shut-in ministries a thing?
I know.
And now that's another resource that those
It
could
is
use.
another resource, yeah, and, we've still at New Life, we still have people that we consider part of our church. They consider them part of our church that just they physically can't come,
Sure.
and so it's really I feel the whole technology thing has really the internet, YouTube, all these avenues here have there's no excuse now.
No.
there's just not an excuse.
Mm-mm.
And so I'm excited for the future here. I feel like a lot of young men are waking up.
Agreed.
You know, how long can you really sit on your mama's couch and feel like it's okay? Like,
Yeah.
quit. There is hope. There is ways to do things. You know, I know right now a lot of young people are feeling really up, you know, kind of depressed. They can't feel like they can't buy their house. They can't buy a house. And yeah, it's all tough. But what I can tell you is if you're following Christ, you know, I am not a prosperity gospel guy. But if you're walking with Christ and you're just following his will, things work out that shouldn't work out.
Yeah.
You don't have the last say in things. It's just incredible. I mean,
And
every time
who cares anyway, as long as I'm used as a vessel for his glory.
Exactly. But I get the feeling now, you know, you've got that young 20s crowd right now that just they feel stuck. And the only reason you're stuck is you right now.
Yeah.
It's you.
And I think you talked a couple times about generational curses. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this new upcoming generation has finally seen that the damage that like happy wife, happy life has done to society.
For sure.
I was talking about original sin. I mean, you know, that's part of the you know, original you know, the original punishment for woman is to long for or submission to her husband. And it's a constant battle, even in our homes. We have a multifaceted battle. We have a battle within ourselves, a battle within our home, battle within our church, and then society as a whole. But I think, you know, generationally, I think there's some awakening there.
There is. What do you think? I mean, what do you think about the young guy today? Think of somebody in the early 20s, 20, 24 years old that's not married. That, you know, they feel at this point, they probably feel a little bit just like it ain't, you know, how in the world am I going to find a wife? What do you tell somebody like that?
I'm probably not that helpful, but in a sense that I would not want to be in their shoes again.
No.
I think, you know, I still view trying to find a wife at mid-20s as a late, you know, later in life. Take that back to our parents' age. I mean, they were having kids. My mom had me when she was 15.
Yeah.
So I mean, and that was, you know, in the 80s. So that was pretty routine then. Birth rates are rapidly declining.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, pornography is a massive struggle for the younger men and women. I've seen reviews or studies showing how much women are actually using it as well, and that's not very helpful. You know, that sort of technology, along with just having your face planted in a mobile device all day long. None of those things are conducive to relationship building. So it's tough. That's where I was saying I don't know how much of a help I would actually be, other than just, I'd say focus on you first. You know, the right woman would know you by your fruits.
And I think the big way for that person to get started, if they're not, is seek first the kingdom. Get that. There is nothing like seeking the Lord and finding in your life changing like that. That is a huge catalyst. You know, I hear a lot of guys, you know, they talk about that, but I'm like, are you ready? Are you ready? You know, I got married young in today's standards. I got married when I was 21, and that, you know, good Lord, I don't know that you're ever ready. I'll tell you what,
No.
my wife's a saint. She is an absolute saint for stuff I put her through.
Well, and
But
I try to lead younger men too, like through my struggles.
mhm,
One thing I would say is, like you said, seek ye first the kingdom of
mhm.
heaven, and then the right woman, God will lead your
Yeah.
way.
And you may have to
Even if
fly
that,
to the Philippines. It's okay. You may have to. I get it. You
sure,
may have to.
but
Uh,
as once she is in your life,
mhm,
don't do. This is where I was getting to. Don't do what I did and put it off too long.
yep.
Don't put off being fruitful and bearing children too long.
Mhm.
Um, I would think I don't know what the average birth age um, of the maternal birth age is now, but I would have to say it's probably
That's 32, if I
30
could guess.
plus. Yeah. Um,
Not too many
which
years left there to be fruitful and multiply there.
exactly, that's the point, right? And that's
Mhm,
that's biblical truth as well as we should be fruitful and multiply. And um, I was scared of getting married. I was scared of having kids. Like you said, you're never going to be ready. So just
mhm.
once you find that once you're in that place, um, with God and then with a woman, jump in with both feet and go at it.
Yep. It is interesting how that's kinda like the final grow up piece
It is.
for a lot of people, you know? Um, but, a lot of people that it is interesting. T it is, you know, 2 of the people that was most impactful in my life never had kids,
Mhm.
and, they were incredible. So, even if you don't have kids, God will put you where you need to be.
Sure.
You're still gonna probably help some kids. So
Well, and like, I obviously had a absent father figure, but I've had a couple people that have filled that role.
mhm,
Um, started working in my career. This guy just, for whatever reason, took me under his wing. Um, not just at work, but in life in
mhm,
general. We ended up, uh, his wife ended up leaving him. We ended up roommates. He was the best man at my wedding. He's quite a bit older than me. He's, in his 60s now, but um, a lot of good fatherly advice. He's got a son my age. So God will send somebody your way to fill that need
yeah.
and continue to do so.
Well, good. Well, man, we've been going 50 minutes.
Yep.
Can you believe that?
Let's go.
Well,
We'll have a lot more. We just
we'll have
wanted
a
to
lot
give an
more.
introduction, who we are, maybe some of the focuses, and I'm sure we'll go off on plenty of tangents and have some people
Oh,
on.
yeah.
And we both got a lot of pastor buddies, and um, dive into some word and some theology, I'm sure. So
Well, let's see what happens.
sounds good.
All right. See you guys later.
See ya.
Peace.